Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Psychic Wives podcast. I'm Jerry Carabin.
I'm Kathy Rumsey.
And I'm Ginger Hendry.
And today we are with someone that I'm kind of becoming friends with. Shari is a client
She's
of
not
mine.
sure she considers you a friend yet, Shari.
Yeah, Shari hasn't said anything yet, but we'll get to that. Shari is a client of mine, but she's also with us today. This is Shari Sakamoto, certified BodyTalk practitioner for both humans and animals. And I remember in a conversation, it was probably last year, Shari, you had said that you were going to do this and everything. And I was like, you got to come on our podcast. So finally, she had reached out and said that, okay, my certification's all done. I'm ready for the podcast, whatever. So today we are with Shari and we're going to talk about certified BodyTalk. And none of us, Kathy, Ginger, nor I, know what that is, other than the fact that I've already looked at your website, etc. So say hi, introduce yourself, and tell us what it is.
Right.
Welcome,
Hello,
by the way.
Yes,
Thank
welcome.
you so much for having me here. It was you were actually doing a session. It was about a year and a half ago on me, my dog and I, and it came up in the session. You're like, what is this thing that you're doing that you and your dog are, and that's when it came to discussion. And I said, and you're like, oh, we do this podcast. I want you to come on the show. And I'm like, can't do it right now. Like, I don't feel comfortable. I'm not really good at talking in front of people. I need to get the information more. And so now that I'm certified, it's this amazing modality that came in my pathway. It was like 3 months before COVID happened. And basically,
isn't it funny that we're all like pre-COVID, post-COVID?
Mhm.
Like,
COVID was a good thing for me.
For the rest
COVID
of
was
the
a
time.
really good thing for me in so many different ways. But BodyTalk, it's a very effective and non-invasive form of energy medicine. It draws on the principle that your body can heal itself. So if you can kind of get into that, open yourself up to that, and it's amazing. It's changed my life. It's transformed my life. And it came in a very interesting way into my life because I've never been exposed to this type of, alternative stuff before, anything far out there. So
yeah, we're far out there.
Yeah, I mean,
that's interesting. So we're gonna go back in and I'm gonna ask you like what you do, but you said something there. Something about you didn't, something about believing or whatever. On your website, it said something about, do you have to believe in this stuff for it to work?
No,
the answer is no, you don't really have to.
No, you just have to be open in trying something. And that's, I think, I've used the word magical because it's been magical to me. I wasn't aware of any of this type of work. I was, raised as a Catholic.
All of us. This is funny. We have to say this. Almost every person we have on here will say, your religious background, and we're all, what do we call it? Recovering Catholics.
Yeah. Recovering Catholics.
Recovering Catholics. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, and it served its purpose. There were so many things that I got from religion, and I pretty much was pretty faithful. I went to mass once a week, all that stuff. And, I think it got to be after my mom had passed away unexpectedly that I was sitting in church and I was like doing a checkoff list, and I was like, okay, I'm a good person. I know I'm a good person. I serve other people. Like, I'm a teacher, I work with kids. I work with kids with special needs. And so I'm checking it off. And then I just was sitting there one Sunday and I'm like, but it's not really doing anything for me. Like, I'm helping other people, but what about me? And that's what I was like, something's just not right. Something's not jiving right now. And so I kind of just sat with it for a while. And I would say a few years forward is when COVID happened, and then things just completely changed.
So how did you find it?
Yeah.
Well, ironically, was through a psychic.
Okay.
My friend on the East Coast had reached out to me, and she had asked if I was okay. And I said, yes. I'm like, what's going on? And I was just about to finish up going into winter break. So I'm like, yeah, I got 3 weeks off. I'm like, everything's great. And my friend wasn't convinced. She's like, I just ran into my friend who's a psychic. And, you know, my mom came into the whole discussion because my mom had come up. And she's like, well, I'm booking you a session. I'm paying for the session, book the session. I was really adamant to my friend. I was like, please don't do that. Like, I'm really fine. Like, everything's great. But little did my fine wasn't fine, because I had to look, and I was literally burning the candles on both and working like 3 jobs, pulling off to the side of the road to take like a 15-minute nap. And like,
Oh my God.
I thought that was normal, but it's not normal.
Right.
No, that's not
And
normal.
and so I set up that psychic reading a week later, and the first thing the lady said, she didn't even say to me like, do you believe in this stuff? Have you done this stuff before? And I have. She's just like, your mom has been driving me crazy for a week. And I was like, what is going on? And so we deducted through, as she sat there, she's like, have you heard of BodyTalk? And
Wow.
right when she said the word, and I've never heard of BodyTalk, I've heard of like, you know, Reiki and all that. Like, I can remember to this day, it was like in 2019, my heart jumped out of my chest. Like, I was like, whoa, what's going on? And I started smiling, and I did not know anything about this. And she's
Wow.
like, I really think you need to look into it. And so that's what I did. You know, after I got off of that reading off the phone, ironically, the next in February, so like 2 months later, there was an in-person class that was happening in LA. And I was like, okay, if God isn't setting this one up, like,
No kidding.
everything has been lined up.
Yeah. So like, it was one of those things that like, well, I can't say no to this.
I
Like,
can't say no to it, and I
yeah.
just have to try. Like,
Yeah.
I have to try. And the backstory to this was that, you know, I'm working with kids with special needs. And for the last 3 to 5 years, I was like looking into different sorts of energy stuff, because I was like, there's more to these, working with these kids that are verbal, nonverbal, autistic, like everything, like there's more to it. And so I'd get home from a long day's work and like research. And then most of us, that's what we do. We research to the point we get tired, and we're like, okay, I'll wait for it to another day. And that another day became 3 years. And I made no headway on trying to find out what could help these kids.
So I love that your mother is like, snap out of it, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, made it impossible for you to not find something or find this modality.
And I think it had to be that, because my mom was obviously like, she was my mom, but she was like my best friend. So like, I was going to take that information, and I was going to be like, okay, if this is coming from mom, I got to do something. Right.
Right.
So
tell us about oh, sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering, like, so you were saying something about Reiki, like you think of energy, you know, body energy work as Reiki. Is BodyTalk like similar to Reiki, or like, can you tell us like basically what it is? Like, do you have an elevator pitch, you know, the 30 seconds in a nutshell?
Well, I'm going to just take something that's an instructor told me, because I've never gotten Reiki done, right? I mean, the most I've gotten I've gotten acupuncture done, but like, I haven't done a lot myself. So the way it was analogy was like, Reiki will get you to like John Smith in New York. BodyTalk will get you to John Smith in New York, but it's John Smith on, you know, Broadway. It's not John Smith, the dad, it's John Smith, you know, the grandson. So it can get very, very specific. And so that's the only way that I heard like the difference between the two.
Got it. So what is the process of it? So I know you can do it in person, but you can also do it distance on the phone or Zoom or whatever. So what is the process? You know, like in Reiki, you know, whether you do it distance or not, like I do a lot of distance Reiki, and I use a surrogate. So my hands are actually on, I use a stuffed animal. My hands are actually on something. Is it a physical thing, or are you scanning in your mind, or what are you doing?
So obviously it came to me during COVID, right? So I would say 98% of my clients are remote.
Yeah.
They're all over the world, animals and people. And the process is pretty much like, I have a structure that I've been taught, and it's the BodyTalk system structure. So you're using your left side of your brain, which is everything with the structure of the protocol. Like we call it like the ladder of what we need to different questions and how we navigate through that. And then we're using the right side of our brain, the intuition side of it. So it's literally like working in the zone, and you got to get to that really quiet, still space where that's where you're getting all your answers through muscle testing.
Oh, okay.
So I'm asking and what we do is we address priorities. We don't address problems, because if I did a session on like Kathy, she could say, well, I have a lot of problems. But what we do is we're working with we all have an innate wisdom within us. And so we address the priorities. What is the priority? So Kathy could come to me and she says, I have this shoulder, it's killing me, I cannot lift it, but that may not be the priority. Right. And so we address the priorities of that client at that moment. And eventually, it could address that shoulder immediately, but innate knows like what I feel like that, what is it, Bo knows at sports, but innate knows, what needs to be addressed first before, and it could be immediately, or it could be, 2 sessions or 3 sessions down the road.
So it's kind of similar to medical intuition in a way that, like, okay, it might not be your shoulder. It may have started in, your back, but it could be related to your spleen, which could be related to some sort of emotion or something like that. Is that
100%? So okay. My sell to everyone, which could be, I don't want to sell, but my pitch to everybody is, first of all, if you have stress in your life, which I think everybody does, right?
Who doesn't, right.
If you have emotions, which everyone, if you have life experiences, if you've, experienced different relationships, you could benefit from this, because that's what happens, is that the longer you live, and when all those things come into your life, that's when the body mind gets out of balance. The communication, the communication, that's what BodyTalk is. We're restoring communication, balance, harmonization, synchronization with whatever needs to be synchronized.
So when a client comes to you, is it like that? They usually come to you with a physical ailment, or do they come to you with a physical ailment, or they could come to you with an emotional ailment? Is it like, do you know what I mean? Like, give me an example. I know you can't talk about clients, but give me an example of, okay, so that was an example. Kathy comes in, my shoulder hurts.
Yeah.
Does anybody come in with like, I can't sleep at night, or like anything like that?
It's typically that, it's typically the physical that draws clients. I feel like, you get to the bottom of the barrel and you've tried everything, and you're maybe, some things have worked a little, but they don't work. And so, that's what clients will do, is that they'll try to experiment and if you can get yourself to that point, like I was, years before the BodyTalk came into my life, I was having like major anxiety. I don't even know what it was. I probably do know what it was about. It was me like sweeping stuff underneath the carpet, not dealing with my parents' death. I've lost like a lot of animals, and I was trying to cope and live life. And so I was having anxiety, and it was so bad. And to this day, it was about I think it was like 7 or 8 years ago. I can remember the feeling I had. It was so scary. And I never wanted that feeling again. And I was willing to try anything, because I didn't want to go to sleep at night. I was afraid I was going to go into this like attack again. And so I feel like people, when they've either lost all their, they've tried different options and nothing's working, they'll come to me. Or if they get to a really, really bad point in their life and they're just willing to try something. Because like I said, I've proposed it to people that have something, and if they're not ready, they're not ready.
They're not
not
ready.
Well,
gonna-
I was going to
Yeah.
say, you probably get the people who are ready and they don't even know what they're ready for, but it's probably one of those, it feels to me like it's one of those, they're more intuitive than they realize they are. And so they're more susceptible to taking on other people's energies and stuff,
Mhm.
which just exacerbates the problem. And it's like, I don't understand why this is going on with me physically. And it's like, oh, but you're so open, you don't even realize what you're taking on in the world, you know, or
You know,
from the world.
it was interesting because I actually had a Reiki session yesterday. My friend is a Reiki master, and she came over and physically did Reiki on me. And I, of course, lost it on the table. That can, you know, any of these modalities can, like, you know, so you know you're good when you start crying, you know what I mean? And I didn't even realize, it's like all starting to dawn on me how I haven't been taking care of myself. And when we do this type of work, I've said this a million times, and I know you guys have agreed with me. When we do this type of work, you know, okay, so Shari does body talk, we're animal communicators, psychics, healers, da da da, whatever. You need to have a modality for yourself that you receive. Do you know what I mean? And it has been so long since I have taken care of myself in that way. And I realized, like, oh my God, I was, and I should know this. I should know that I'm taking
Right.
so much of this crap on. And I don't mean crap because that makes it sound like my clients are giving me crap. That's not what, you know,
No,
but
but
I'm
it's
taking so much of
energy. Yeah. Energy that doesn't
on
serve you.
and was not taking care of myself. So I decided that, so this is all so synchronistic, because I was like, so Reiki is kind of my go-to because she's a really good friend and she just pops over and we share Reiki. But I was so excited when Shari was like body talk. I'm like, woo, another thing. You know what I mean? Like, to get down to the
Shari,
bottom of it.
yeah. So if I were to, like, I know what to expect if I go for a Reiki treatment, and not that most people do, because if you haven't experienced it, you haven't experienced. But let's say I booked an in-person session with you and I show up at your space. What does it physically look like? Do you lay me on a massage table? Do you sit on a couch? Like, what's it look like? Do you lay your hands on me?
Typically, so I don't really, I do in person more so with family, just because I haven't gotten to that point. And,
Yeah,
and most
but you
people,
will.
and most people, they actually like the comfort of their own home.
Mm.
So when I'm like on a call, or we'll do like a video camera, they're just like lounged out on their, you know, their favorite chair, their bed.
Okay, cool.
And so we're all made up energy. I don't need to touch. It's just a focus thing that I need to do. And I use obviously my training and my intuition to find out what needs to be addressed that in that session.
So
But if you are typically in person with other practitioners, because there are other practitioners, you know, they use the massage table. They'll use the hand, the muscle testing on the client to get their yeses and nos.
So when
And
you're doing it over the phone, are you using a surrogate to muscle test? Are you muscle testing yourself? Are you using a pendulum? What do you?
I use it on myself. Yeah.
Okay.
And interesting enough is I don't get my yeses and nos like typically through my, like a lot of people have different techniques like hands. I get it in my chart, which I had to get out of my own belief system on that, because I really wanted to be like everybody else. I'm like, I can't get it through my hands. And I was like,
Yeah.
no. And then I got to a couple of instructors. They're like, but that's what makes you different. Like, don't get rid of that. That's how you do it. And that's okay. And
Like,
so
what is, you know, Ellen, how when she does, what is the thing that Ellen does? Is it emotion code?
motion code.
Motion code. So she'll be doing things like this, and she gets yeses and nos. Like, a yes is she's pulled forward, a no is she's pulled back. I'm the same way. I can muscle test sort of, but you know the thing, what is it with the finger? I can't do that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, I kind of, that's really cool because it speaks to what we've talked about years, you know, for a while, how especially when we were training, like, I want what she has. Like, she can hear and I can't. Do you know what I mean? So I want what she has, but other people are looking at you, Shari, saying, oh, I want to be able to do it that way. Do you know what I mean?
I know
You're
it's like
just,
all that.
it's just a claircognizant thing, sort of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
that
I
is
liked
cool.
what Kathy said, because it really brought it back. Like, we all have this stuff in our awareness, right? And it goes back to that feeling in church, right? Where I was like, I haven't been taking care of myself. And now I have like this community of other, body talkers that we swap, or I
Yeah.
can do a session on myself, but I'm sure there is a little bit of a bias of that. So
Of
I
course.
prefer to do a session on me.
So that's what I was going
but
to ask. Like, you can do your community can do sessions on you. You could do one on you, but whatever. When we were talking about this yesterday, we always say when you give a session, you get a session.
Absolutely.
Do you feel that that's the same way with Body Talk?
100%, 100%. And so our founder, John Valtheim, he actually passed away. And it was so weird because he passed away a year ago yesterday, which is like the timing of this.
Yeah.
But he would always say, like, get as many sessions, because that's part of it. I mean, to be honest, Body Talk is a spiritual pathway, because to get to that, you may come in on that physical level, all these physical stuff, but it's a consciousness. So it's going to open up a pathway to how you see life, how you see yourself. And that's just like, that's what I was missing. Like, what I was missing all my life. I was just doing things for people and doing things to the point where I was getting so run down, and I'm like, there's got to be more to this. Come on.
I love how
there's a great book called Who Fills Your Bucket? And it's all about you fill other people's buckets, but who's filling yours, or how are you getting your, it doesn't have to be another person. It could be you taking time for yourself, going for a walk in nature and really being at peace, or whatever. But yeah, you gotta keep your own bucket filled, or
and I love how jazzed you are about this, and I love what you just said, because it is kind of, it can be all of these modalities, these energetic things or whatever, can be, Reiki, this emotion, they can be very life-changing, because like I've been working so hard on making this pretty major decision in my life, but I've been so in my head about it for like 6 months now. And then I had Reiki yesterday, or I had this energetic modality yesterday, and it like, poof, do you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, do you know what I mean? It felt like it took all these layers of crap off, so that I felt like it's just so different, and it can be life-changing when somebody gets down to that thing.
Absolutely.
Everything, things clear up. You look at things in a completely different way. You realize you've been giving your power away or whatever, or doing like what you said, taking care of everybody else, it's
divine timing too, though, don't you think?
This, I was just going to say, with the holidays,
yeah. But I mean, even for you, Shari, when you were starting, you were at that point, everything just sort of came together. It wouldn't have come together 6 months earlier, because you wouldn't have been ready for it. So all of these things, and you had mentioned when people come because there's no other, let's say, alternative, and they say, I need to try this, because that's the point of divine timing. Like, you can't, and I too, Jerry, when you just said about, making a major decision over the last 6 months, I had a friend who said this to me like 20 years ago. She left, took an early retirement package, and I was talking to her after she left. And I said, how did you decide this? Because I really want to go. I was in corporate. I really want to go. I want to leave, but I can't get there. And she said, I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but literally one day you'll wake up and you'll know. And I thought, that does not help me.
Right.
But she was absolutely right. Literally, one day I was sitting at my desk and it clicked. And I said, I can go. And I could have gone at any time.
But
Right.
I wonder if you would have realized that if someone hadn't said it to you. Do you know what I mean?
I think
Like,
she would have, because I think, God's spirit universe is in divine order, and somehow someone would have gotten that to her at the right time.
yeah, that's
I
true.
mean,
It would have been somebody else, maybe.
Yeah, I have a client that is thinking of, she wants to leave her job, but she can't see it happening. She can't see it happening, and I keep saying it's just going to happen organically. So don't try to see it happening, just wait for it to happen. So very similar, like people saying, I'm desperate, maybe in a desperate position or something, and all of a sudden, what's this body talk thing? Or, or whatever, somehow, but sort of like Shari with the psychic and with your mom, and then the class, is like right
It's
down
just
the
like
road from you.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything laid out. And it's so funny because so many times I'm like, God, if Body Talk was in my life 30 years ago, like, life would have been just so much easier. But it's not, that's just not the way it's supposed to be. It's like, I needed to experience these different aspects of my life or relationships of my life to get me to the point that I am right now. Otherwise,
Right. And like what Ginger
You wouldn't
said,
have been ready for it
you wouldn't
30
have been
years
ready
ago.
for it,
Yeah.
or it would
True.
have been a much different experience for you, and maybe it wouldn't have clicked, or it wouldn't have, and that's one of the things I think is so important. Say that again, Ginger.
All the impact, like you mentioned, when people get to that certain point and then they find you, they wouldn't have found you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If divine timing was off. So
And it's always things like that that really do make you remind you that the universe is in divine order.
And we're all connected.
And we're all connected. And if we
whether we
get out of
know
the
people-
way of it and just look for, like, I always say, the path to light up. Ginger, what do you say? What lifts your
same thing too.
yeah, what lifts your dress? You
Yeah.
used to say that. Something like
What
that.
blows you dressed up
or whatever.
What lights you up?
Yeah, if you just wait for it to line up. That's so cool. I did want to ask you, you had mentioned the kids. Has it changed your relationship with the kids you try to help, you teach?
It's just, I'm at that point right now because I've been teaching for close to 20 years. And with the kids with special needs, it's been about 15, 16 years. And so I'm trying to navigate that because I work for a public school system. And so if anything right now, I'm just aware of where my energy is going after a day of working with them.
Yeah.
But like in regards to Body Talk, that's a
you
different.
Can't go in there and start working
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah, I'm
I
like,
guess
not
I
doing-
just meant like that. Has it, your awareness is, has it changed the way maybe you interact with them, or?
Oh, everything, with just not even the kids. I can go for a walk and go to the store, and my awareness of just how people interact, it's just this, like, they use the analogy of like that light bulb that has like many coats of paint on it. And every time you get in a session, you're like scraping a little bit of that paint off, and that light is getting brighter. And so that's what I feel like. It has literally transformed me. And this has only been, 3 years of of being exposed to it, but being a practitioner, I've been a practitioner about a year and a half. So, and it's something that it's just ongoing. I can go for walks, and just like nature just comes at me differently. The colors are different. The sounds are a lot like louder.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, it really is. I love it. Talk to me a little bit about the classes. Like, were they online classes? Were they physical classes?
And this is where divine timing comes into play, because COVID happens. I go to that in-person class, and trust me, it was a 3-day class. Everything was going over my head. I was like, are you guys making this stuff up? But I still was really intrigued by it. I'm like, this is really cool, but like, what are you guys talking about? Muscle testing? Is she lifting her hand by herself? They're like, no.
Yeah.
And I was just like completely floored. Like, so I left that 3-day class, and still very, very energized and enthusiastic. And then literally a month later, we go into lockdown.
Yeah.
And this is where COVID was like my biggest thing, my blessing, because all the classes started to be offered Zoom. And so I am not joking you. I took about over a dozen classes after. I went on hyper speed of classes. Like I couldn't get enough of it. And something it was telling me, just keep taking the classes. This is a great opportunity, because if we weren't on Zoom, I would have to travel. I'd have to take days off from work. I'd probably get like maybe 1 or 2 classes in a year. I got like over a dozen classes taken care of. And everyone's like, you're going crazy. And I'm like, no, it's like, this is what I need. Like, I need this. And I just like dove into the,
That's amazing.
studying. And then like Jerry knows, my dog, who just recently passed away last month, she was with me the entire ride. Every class, she was like laying behind me. Every session, I just started practicing. I was, giving sessions to friends, animals, and it just laid out. So like, I got the cheap route. Everything was very, very cheap.
That's
Otherwise,
awesome.
I think it would have been like
But
5 times.
again, divine order. You know what I mean? And how we're all connected, because someone somewhere knew that this had to be presented to you right before COVID. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
it had to
divine-
it had to be presented this way.
Yeah, for you. That's amazing. Can you talk a little bit about the animals? So, okay, how do you do it on an animal? Like, and I know, I'm not saying I don't, I do animal Reiki, distance Reiki on animals all the time. So is it the human says, this is what's happening with my animal? How does it work with the animals?
So typically the human obviously reaches out to me,
Yeah.
and they'll tell me about a problem. It could be a physical problem. It could be a behavioral problem. And so once I get that permission from the owner, then I go into the session. But if we're doing it remotely, like I usually have a picture in front of me just as a focusing tool. And I'll sit quietly before I even do the session with the animal, and just see what comes up, and just trusting that intuition. And then I go into the body talk and see what the priority. But the interesting thing about animals is their consciousness level, obviously you all know this, is just far different from ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Us humans, we have so much baggage. We're very complicated.
Absolutely.
And animals are very, very much like, they're very much, so they're just so different. And so the funny thing about when we went into COVID, what we do for our animals, we don't do for ourselves, right? So
Right.
I booked a session for my dog, Sammy, and something was going on at that time. And so I book a session, and now I'm getting intrigued because the things that are coming up in the session, and I'm like, some of this sounds like my stuff. And so, the practitioner is doing the session, and then I book another session. And then finally, I think at the second session, she's like, have you ever thought about just getting a session for yourself? Like, Sammy doesn't need any more sessions.
No, I'm fine.
Yeah. And so like, that's dogs, they're pack animals. So they take on a lot of our stuff.
I was going to
Yeah.
say he's like the conduit for that person getting to you, right? Is like, I'll carry your stuff because you can't recognize it yet.
Yeah.
But that, yeah.
Yeah.
So cool.
It's amazing. Like, how much they take on. So dogs, one of their consciousness level is unconditional love, dogs.
Yeah.
And so, they'll do whatever it takes to keep that pack alive. And so they'll take on stuff within the family matrix, because dogs are family oriented, and they'll take on it. And what little did I know is like, I lost 2 parents within 4 years. Our family was like, my mom was like the rock of the family. So when she had passed away unexpectedly, everything just like went upside down for our entire family. Siblings, it was just really, really tough.
Yeah.
We just didn't know how to deal with, we all were dealing with the grief so differently. And I had 3 dogs at that time. Sammy was one of them. And they were a godsend to me, because I don't even think I would have got through that period. but yeah, it's amazing what they'll do for their human.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And Sammy and you had a very big, we've talked about this, an incredible bond. So Sammy had a play in that too, getting the whole body talk thing. Like it's almost like Sammy's like your mom was saying, Sammy, I got it. You know what I mean? Like, so you would do that.
It's very funny because you don't see on the camera, but I have a chair right here and I have like one of Sammy's blankets. So she's kind of like, you need to sit with me in the Zoom because I'm a little nervous.
Yeah.
And on the other chair is my mom. So
that's great.
That's
so
awesome.
cool. So cool.
And that's the cool thing too, is that I know all this stuff, right? I know that. I know they're still around.
But that doesn't make it still, well, we talk about this a little bit, and it's sort of about what you said about doing, body talk on your own self. It's like us reading our own animals. It's difficult because we're attached to the outcome of it. Do you know what I mean? And we know stuff all the time. Well, like I'll get a sign or something, and I'll text it to Kathy and Ginger. Do you think this is and they're like, duh, you know what I mean? Like, cause like, is this what I think it is, or whatever, because we tend to, which is really weird. But it's the same thing as I just said. Like, I didn't realize, oh my God, I haven't been taking care of myself. I should know this. You know what I mean? Or when I see a sign or I get an incredible sign from my mom, I should know that that's it. I don't know if we talked about this, I think so. There was a meme on Facebook once, and it was, a picture of a woman, kind of going like that. And it said something about, this is the face I have when I get a sign, but I need a signier sign. Do you know what I mean? Like, a signier sign. Like, we don't trust.
How many 2x4s across the head do you need?
How many 2x4s across the head do we need before we realize, so yeah, you got so many signs. So many signs.
So many signs. And now I have these tools too. It's just like, now that my dog isn't here anymore. Like I know, like if I'm not breathing, because the breath there's so much to draw on the breath. And she used to do that. We would be in sessions and like, she would let out these like sighs. And I would look back at Sammy. I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to breathe. I need to ground myself. Or if I'm not drinking water, she literally would go to the bowl and drink water and literally look at me like, you need to drink water. Like,
that's
okay.
Awesome.
I get it.
We do have that connection. And you reminded me that last week, is that I need to trust that. Because when you're going through it and you've lost somebody that you dearly love and miss, you're just in that you're just trying to just get on your feet again. Right. Yeah. I haven't done a session for body talk in a month since she's passed, just because I'm just not in the right space. So
maybe you should, because you need it though.
And know that she'll be there with you.
Yeah.
Energetically, she's still with you.
Of course. So I did want to ask you something. Do you, we all have our little ritual or whatever we go through before we go through a session. Do you meditate before? Do you need a few minutes to just like, how do you, because you say you got to get into that zone, obviously you're using left and right brain. How do you do that? What's your thing?
I usually right now, it changes. I mean, I do this one technique that's a standalone technique. A body talk is cortices. So I tap out my cortices to get both sides of my brain balanced. And then I sit quietly and I use this other tool called Mindscape. It's just kind of going into my workshop and see what shows up with either the animal or the person before I log in and start the session. But just making sure I get as quiet as possible and grounded as possible. Yeah. And that's going to let those yeses and nos come in really fluid.
That's awesome. So this is a little bit of a tangent, but I used to meditate every day for years, every day, like 20 minutes a day without fail for years. And then I got my bad diagnosis at the end of 2019. And then I like went down a rabbit hole and I totally stopped meditating. And I have not been able to, except for the past like month, because I started taking an online class. And one of the things she's saying is like, you as a you know, a healer, a psychic or whatever, must meditate every day. Must. It's non-negotiable. Must meditate every day. And it was another thing that I've been saying, oh God, I know this. Why am I not doing this? So I have started up again meditating every day. Do you guys all meditate every day? You do. Ginger, you don't?
I do it very intermittently.
Okay.
And every time I do it, I'm like, oh, I feel so much better. I'm going to do
I
it
know.
tomorrow. And
I do most mornings and every night I
Okay.
meditate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shari,
And
you?
it's,
I'm not good at it, but yeah, I don't do it daily. I do it probably when I should probably be doing it daily, but I do it when I feel like I need it. And it's
Yeah.
probably not.
Kathy, you do it for how long? You do it morning and night.
in the morning, like 10 minutes. In the night, it's 20.
So let me ask this question though. Is it meditating to you just sitting there quietly, but can you get into a meditative state when you go walking in the neighborhood?
Yes.
I
So
do,
I
yeah.
do that.
You
It's
do
just,
do
I
that.
don't
And
sit
there are,
there.
yeah, right. There are other, right. I don't even think about that as meditating, but that is meditating. Like, and I
We
have
actually did a podcast on
and
that.
like grooming my horse is,
Yes.
you know, assuming I'm not chatting with the other ladies at the barn or whatever, but like I get into a meditative state when I groom my horse sometimes. It doesn't have to be sitting in the lotus position
Yeah.
with your, you know, your hands up doing that.
And we
very
did
much.
have a podcast on that, remember? Because we were talking about that, exactly that, all the different ways to meditate. For me,
I used to get into that same state knitting.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
Knitting is very
stitches.
meditative.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's doing something like that. I can get into, you know, to me, if I'm just sitting on a beach, I don't have earbuds in, I'm not talking to someone, I'm just sitting on the beach listening to the water. That can be meditation. Like you said, Shari, walking in the woods or whatever can be meditation. You know, anything rhythmic like that, like sewing or whatever, crocheting, knitting or something.
And I'm a big fan of guided meditations. Big
Yeah.
fan
Me too.
of guided meditations. There are some really unbelievable meditations out there, and they're all free. Like I'm always like, they should sponsor me. How much I tell people about it's a free app, Insight Meditation.
Yes.
Insight Timer, I think is what it's called. And you can do the silent, and it'll just give you, I'm sorry, my cats are going nuts over here.
No, they're
if you
funny.
don't
It's
hear
kind
all
of
the
funny to watch
nonsense.
them in and out of the, yeah.
It does a nice chime, you know, you set a timer and it chimes to let you come back out of it. Or they have beautiful, like, people's voices are amazing.
Oh, I know, right?
It's funny, I actually taught a workshop back in August for animal communication, but I wanted everybody to get into a space first. And I was going to lead them on a guided meditation. And I thought, why? I don't have the voice for it. Like, and I wanted to be part, like,
Of the
I wanted
meditation,
to
yeah.
meditate. I didn't want to think about that. So I put my time, you know, I put my Insight app on. I found a nice 10-minute meditation. I had, I don't know, 10 people in the class. Every person asked for, like, they all loved it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's free. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here.
Yeah.
And if you're new to meditating, or just like, I can't sit still that long, do a guided
And
one.
sometimes those guided, it, like you said, the voice alone
Oh my God.
is enough to get you in there, like not even paying attention to the words sometimes. Like the
Right.
voice will be so melodic or something that it's
And
like,
I used to do ones when I started meditating years ago. I would do sleep meditations, and they were like an hour long or sometimes 3 hours long. And they were meant for you to fall asleep to. And the premise was, you start the meditation and you get into that sleepy space and you drift off, but your subconscious is still hearing the words.
that's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
So it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
you're meant to fall asleep to it. Those are awesome too.
You know, it's funny because I have Insight Timer. Haven't
Oh, I
looked
use
in
it all. I
years,
use it
you know what I mean?
all the time.
Again,
I
Yeah.
use but same thing.
Yeah, my
Calm,
husband
yeah.
uses Calm. He loves
Yeah.
Calm. He loves the daily whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, Rich
Yeah,
uses
But what's
voice.
funny about my husband is we listen to that one every night before we go to bed. Jeff, and he literally, it's a Calm, and I think you have to pay for Calm.
I think you do, yeah.
So Calm is a fee, but he doesn't care because he loves it. But there's this guy that does, it's called the Daily Trip. And every night, my husband will be like, are you ready to go to sleep now? Yes. And he'll press play on his phone, and the guy comes on and he'll say, hi, it's Jeff. And my husband starts snoring. It's like Pavlovian. As soon as he hears this guy's voice, he falls asleep. He's like, and then the next.
It's so funny when you say that, because when I was in college, and I'm old, so we had, a record player.
Yeah.
So I used to listen to Dan Fogelberg.
Oh yeah.
Before he went to sleep, and so and then we would have to wake up to get up and shut it off,
right, flare off. Yeah,
whatever.
Right.
Hadn't listened to that in years and years, and like a year ago, I heard some Dan Fogelberg.
And you were just like in the zone.
I just wanted to lay down and go to sleep, and I thought
Yeah.
that was 40 years ago.
Pavlov's dogs. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
fine. Cool. Sorry about that tangent. I just wanted to know.
Yeah, but yeah,
It was because I was like, what's your ritual? Do you have to get yourself into a whatever place? So I think I asked all the questions that I wanted to ask. Sherry, this was really, really good. I love, again, I love the energy from you about this, like how you feel about this makes it that much better. Like, because clearly you would be a really good practitioner because you're so turned on by it. You love it so much. It just sounds just amazing.
Yeah,
you have great energy.
Yeah.
I wanted to come on the show. Well, first of all, like I need to, once a year, I try to do something that's definitely out of my comfort zone, and coming on a podcast is a little, and so this is my coming out of the comfort zone. And what better way to get out of the comfort zone is something that you're passionate, enthusiastic about.
Yeah.
And I just want people to know it doesn't have to be body talk. There's just so many great things out there.
Yes.
And if you're just open, if you're having a dialogue and it seems like the dialogue is going like, why is life so hard? Why does it have to be like this? That it doesn't have to be like this.
Yeah.
There's so many good things that you can go and just experience, whether it is body talk, Reiki,
and for some people, it's as simple as turn off the TV, stop absorbing.
Great word. Yes.
I a few years ago had my TV on one of the 24-hour news stations all day, every day. And I didn't realize that I was walking around frazzled. And it's like, oh, right.
Yeah, you're absorbing.
And now I don't like, and it's like, let me be uninformed, please, because it's easier.
Yeah,
and
I love that
100%.
you said that, Sherry, because it's true. And I always say this, just find something. Doesn't have to be my thing, find something.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Try a couple, figure out what your thing is and utilize it.
And that's the beauty of it. That could be your thing at one time, and then maybe you're trying it for 5 years, and then you want to try something else. I mean, but there's this whole thing of having to go through the same cycles and the same emotions, and a lot of we have a lot of physical ailments and mental. People are having mental issues and emotional. You can't avoid all of that. But there is a way to take care of yourself, to get yourself at least a little bit more back into balance, the way that you're intended to. And I do believe God has given us all those resources. I mean, from the food that we eat, you can get it just right off of, from just nature and what we're putting in our bodies versus, using just different modalities to deal with the stresses of life. It's amazing, because what people don't realize is you could have 100 people come into your or to do a session. They all have headaches, 100 different, but they all have headaches for different reasons.
Yeah.
But what we tend to do as a society is we go get, you know, a tablet to make the headache go away temporarily, but we're not getting to the root issue of why you have those headaches or those migraines. And there are modalities such as BodyTalk that will get to why you have that. And then you'll notice.
And how sad sometimes thinking about people that this isn't even in their they don't even see that there's something other than taking the pill. You know what I mean? That it's sad. So that's why we do this thing, though. What, Kathy?
That's why this is amazing to share that with everybody. Because I was
be a little light in the world, right? Enough little lights make a big light.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so if somebody hears this and says to somebody else, let's look into those modalities they were talking
I'm going to go look and see what it is, or
what is it? What, you know, what is any of it? Let's look at it. Because if the more people that realize that, exactly like you've been saying, Shari, oh, you don't have to live this way. You don't have to. The more people that realize that, the better we're all going to be. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being here with us. All of Shari's contact information is going to be on our website, thepsychicwives.com. So you'll be able to find her there. This podcast that you're listening to, obviously you've already found it, so I don't have to really say this, but I'm going to anyway. You can find it on thepsychicwives.com, iTunes, or Apple.
Tell your friends. You're already here, but tell your friends.
Yeah, tell your friends, whatever. And our Facebook
YouTube.
And YouTube, yeah.
Subscribe.
YouTube, subscribe to our
You
thing
can
on
watch my
YouTube.
cats romp in the
Watch
background.
the kitties in the background that are, I thought there was going to be attack at one point because one was in the bathroom and the other one was over here. And I thought,
oh, they're, yeah. Well, it's mayhem here.
Yeah, it's mayhem. So thank you guys very much. And until next time.
Be well.
And be kind.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.